Welcome to Unplugged Live with Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, PhD. Get ready to get inspired by the stories of overcoming life's challenges to bring change and transformation. Here's Dr. Diane.
Hello and welcome back to Unplugged. I'm Dr. Diane, your host, and I'm so glad that you tuned in on tonight. It's going to be great. We're going to talk about how mental health impacts the level of crime that is happening in our community. But first, before we get to the show, I want to remind you that September 30th, we're doing a big event, Motown Review. And at that celebration, we're going to have great food, fun, live band, the Groove Coalition, DJ Charles Scantlin is going to be there to help us enjoy the iconic tunes of Motown. You don't want to miss the celebration. And as an added bonus, we're going to be celebrating grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. And I see that as an awesome honor for them, because at a time in their lives when they should be just living for themselves, they've taken on another generation to raise. And we want to provide some respite activity for them on that night. We have gifts for them. We have prizes for them and you who are in the audience. So we want you to come and celebrate with us. Bring your best friend, bring your partner. Maybe you and your hubby might want to hang out for an afternoon of just enjoying great music, fun, and laughter. The event is going to be held at the Social Event Center, 644 Cesare Boulevard, Jacksonville, Florida, 32211. But you can get your tickets at our website, drdianeclark.org. That's drdianeclark.org, or you can get them on Eventbrite. If you call us at 904-476-1104, we will make sure to get a ticket to you. Thank you so much. And now let's go on with our show. And listen, if you're enjoying the show, please comment, like, share, and subscribe to our social media platforms. We would appreciate you building our algorithms. And now I'm going to introduce our guest, who happens to be a friend of mine. Her name is Dr. Frida Doxey, and she is the CEO of A Wise Company, LLC. And I'm going to bring her on stage and let her further introduce herself and her talents. Hi, Frida.
Hello, Dr. Clark. It is so good to be here, and thank you. I am, as she said, Dr. Frida Doxey, LMHC, which is a licensed mental health counseling. And so the company is A Wise Company, and we provide counseling and coaching for individuals, couples as well, right here in Jacksonville, Florida. But I provide one-on-one therapy sessions and coaching sessions across these United States. I am licensed in the state of Florida and the good old state of Texas. So I do have clients when it comes to counseling who are in Florida and in Texas. And so I've been doing this for quite some time. Started in Texas, and then we relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. So I was in Atlanta for several years, and then we came here to the wonderful city of Jacksonville, Florida, where I have a private practice here, as well as I had one in the state of Georgia. So I've been on this journey for a long time, and my practice is based on renewing minds and transforming lives. That can be found out of Romans chapter 12, 1 and 2, where it says, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And in my practice, I found not just only scripture or spiritually, but it's also apropos when it comes to cognitive behavioral therapy. It's what's going on in the mind that allows us to do what we do and say what we say. So that is my inroad to CBT, is known as cognitive behavioral therapy.
That is awesome. You have quite a career designed for yourself and your accomplishments. We celebrate you with all that you're doing and how you're helping our communities to be better. Frida, today, tonight I want us to talk about how mental health impacts crime. We've had quite a bit of crime that has happened here in our community in Jacksonville, not to mention the shooting that was done at the Dollar General that upset the city. I mean, such just useless crime, useless drama. And I'd like for you to talk about how the quality of our minds can affect what we do in relationship to our emotions.
Exactly. And making reference to the incident here in Jacksonville, Florida, where the young man stated, and it has been quoted, that he had a mental health issues for some time and unfortunately made a decision to take the lives of several individuals as well as his own life. Let's debunk a myth. And one of the myths is that mental health leads to violent acts. The statistic shows that 3 to 4%, only 3 to 4% of violent acts can be contributed to individuals with mental health. What we see is that sometimes these acts of violence are so dramatic and so devastating that it balloons the effect that mental health is the driving force behind it. The other part to that is not taken away from the crime that has been committed here in Jacksonville and other cities throughout these United States is when you look at the statistics, actually 10 to 15% of mental health crime, when it happens, it is done to someone with a mental health issue. So that number is greater where they are victims of crime. So let's break that down. Let's take a look at the first one. Yes, it does happen. And when you look at the statistics, it can be, and sometimes people who do come forth, we find out that their diagnosis may be major depressive disorder. It may be schizophrenic or anything in that category where you have delusions or hallucination of any sort. It may also, you may hear that they were diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Those seems to be the ones that are stated more so than any other diagnosis. You will also have others with different diagnoses. When you look at women, when they commit crime, mental health is also, when it comes to abuse. So when there is domestic violence, you may see, and sometimes you don't see or hear this in the news as often, that those women who are incarcerated or in prison or jail committed the crime that was committed against them. So they were first the victim of domestic violence, which is also diagnosable for the, let's say it's the female, men are also victim of domestic violence. And so when that person decides to protect themselves against the onslaught of constant being abused, you do have where those individuals commit a deadly crime and it is considered murder or however they may categorize it in a particular state. So you can see that when you look at the statistics, it is, let's add balance to it, where you have those who schizophrenic diagnosis, bipolar diagnosis, and let's just say where there is some delusion. It may not just always be a delusional effect or a hallucinatory effect. It could also be the person has had a mental break where they are no longer really consciously, and this is all, if you will, psychiatric. So when you're looking on the outside, it's like, oh, he knew exactly what he was doing because he said it and he lines this up. So as much as possible, and what that is our human reaction to trauma. So not only was the individuals who were murdered traumatized when they, saw what they saw with the individual here in Jacksonville, but also the community. I think about EWU community at Waters University, the students, the parents, so many of us, right? As we heard about it, we is what we call indirect trauma. So we imagine in our minds what that was like, and most people take on the imagination of the victim. What would it be like to be faced with a gun? And we experience, excuse me, trauma in that way. And so it's not taken away from what happened. Our prayers, my prayer do go out to all the families. So you think about the parents of the individual, the guy who took his life, they too are experiencing trauma. So it's like a ripple effect that goes throughout the community. So when we look at that, we have to take a look at the statistics and add balance to it. And if I may, let's take a look at part B. They are victim as well. So
Yes.
I don't know the history of the young man, but when we look at other records, and what I mean by that, other cases, we'll see there were some incidents where that person was also victimized themselves. I am not giving kudos to committing crimes. Let's be very clear about that, right?
Yes. Yes.
But let's take a look at how many, when you look at 10 to 20% of victims, and that could be any diagnosis. That could be diagnosis when it comes to the ones I mentioned earlier. It could be those who may be experiencing a major depressive disorder and at a state where they're having a mental break. It could also be those who are traumatized and they are victims of crimes as it relates to because of their anxiety, and the list can go on and on and on. So as we add balance, it is a pull on our empathy. Right? It is hard to have empathy.
I know.
And this is public knowledge when I think of our dear friends, the Stanfords, and what they experience, that trauma that they experience, how that victimized them as well. And they are ones who I just totally admire how they handle that situation. Years later, I came along to know what happened. So let's get all the facts.
Yeah.
So as much as possible, let's get the facts, and let's avoid spewing out myths,
Hmm.
and let's avoid and be like a friend of mine. She said, "This is my opinion." Let's use that inroad. This is my opinion that
Right. Right.
people with mental health are committing all these crimes so gently, and we do hear, if we can go back in history, Dahmer, I hope I pronounced his name right, and how the horrendous crimes that he committed in his mental health state. It is the crime sometimes, if not all the times, just overwhelms us when we look at the person or persons who may have committed those crimes in their mental health state. If I can add here as well, so what do we need to do? What do we need to do? As I said before, let's get the facts. Let's
Right.
get the facts. And I love and I say I love because I deeply appreciate our sheriff and how he made those statements, and he was matter of fact, and he, immediately got the facts and began to tell us the facts as they was receiving. So I give kudos to him as well as to the Clay County sheriff, how they collaborated, and I'm believing still collaborating. So that's important. Get the facts, stay on top of those facts. If you find a myth, debunk it as soon as you can. Get information. You mentioned this, Dr. Clark, about mental health. Get the facts about mental health.
Hmm.
Mental health, the number one, I should know, the second leading cause of death in these United States is suicide.
Hmm.
And we have in the incident with the young man, he committed a crime and he committed suicide.
Hmm.
And I want to also add, suicide is high, if not number one, when it comes to our veterans. And
Yes.
we have incidents of crime. If you look back all the cases throughout these United States, you'll see where there are veterans who have committed some of these crimes, as well as suicide.
Hmm.
Suicide is one that I love to, and I say love because it's my passion to give people information about the facts about suicide. And you say, well, what is that age group, Frida? So when you look at the ages of 10 to 24, those are the ages that are taking their lives. How old was the young man who took his life? I don't remember. I don't have those facts, so I'm not going to say he's in that category. But suicide is the second leading cause of death in the United States. Just in year 2020, 2021, over 45,000 individuals took their lives. Some of those was diagnosed with a mental health. And the other part of this is when it comes to mental health is sometimes, if not most of the times, I forgot the numbers, but there's a large number of us who have a mental health issue, but we do not get help.
Right. And
And
those undiagnosed cases can only worsen over time if you don't seek out help or remedy. Um, Frida, I want you to talk about, I heard you mention bipolar, and it's all over the TV. They have 2 or 3 drugs now that's supposed to help patients with that. Would you explain what exactly is bipolar? I think they have 1 and 2, and how that impacts individuals in the community, in their work life, in their social life. Could you talk a little bit about that?
yes, so there is it diagnosed as bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, and there are several criterias to that individuals will meet to be diagnosed with bipolar 1 or bipolar 2.
Mhm.
Once again, get the facts. Family members, you can go to SAMHSA, you can go to NAMI, NAMI.org, and you can get legitimate, and I say legitimate because it's research based, and they are also connected with SAMHSA. SAMHSA stands for Substance Abuse Mental Health, right? Association Agency. Now you, because they gather all the facts, they gather the research, so you get some research based information, so you'll know what are the categories and characteristics to be diagnosed with bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. So once you get those facts, avoid diagnosing your family members. Do not become a therapist. And I say
Okay.
that with laughter because it happens so often. And this is a fact for my own family. And I grew up in Mississippi. Not that Mississippi is a state where you have most of these diagnoses, but I grew up in a family, and my cousin, and I can say this freely because it is okay. And my cousin's daughter is okay with me sharing this. And that is my cousin, her mom, we would say, she's just loony. Where is she? She would be absent. We say, oh, she's up in the ward. We have phrases for it. And I'm sure those who are listening, you probably agree. Yes, we have phrases for, she talks to us, ignore her. She just, she's missing some marbles. We did not know, and we did not have that information. And unfortunately, for the Black community in particular, and there are other communities that I find in my years of practice, and usually in those communities where people of color, we do not talk about it. We do not discuss it. It's silence. What's in the family stays in the family. And unfortunately, what's in the family stays in the family is that this mental health issue becomes like a snowball effect. And so years later, years later, I am adult and I'm doing therapy as a therapist. And I realized, wow, my cousin had a diagnosis, schizoaffective bipolar. And I
Oh,
remember sharing it with her sister, my I call her my sister cousin. And we both talked about, as we was growing up, it was not talked about. So we did not know the diagnosis. We just label it. And I say to everyone listening, please avoid labeling. Yeah, we were growing up. We didn't know any better, but I don't want to excuse that. Today, there's too much access to information. So with those characteristics, bipolar means like polarization on a battery. You have positive and negative, right? So the same thing, you're going to have a positive and a negative emotional state. It could be depression as well as anxiety. It could be also major depression. That depression can look like many things. I don't have to list. I would prefer to give you the actual characteristics. I don't like, giving summaries. But look up on NAMI, and yes, I'm a supporter of NAMI. It's a nonprofit organization, NAMI.org, and you can get those categories. So yes, there's medication. So doctors, medical doctors, I am not a medical doctor that can prescribe medication. I highly recommend that the persons go to a psychiatrist. Yes, you can go to your medical doctor because they can give medication, but a psychiatrist has the specialization to
yes.
work with those with neurological, psychiatric illnesses, or a psych nurse, APRN, who also may be a PhD as well, but they are psychiatric nurses. They too can diagnose this and prescribe medication. Borlar is one of those medications that's out there. Once again, I'm a strong purporter, Dr. Clark, and I advocate for my clients, and I teach them advocate for yourself. The
Uh-huh.
doctor can only prescribe based on what you give him or her, and they run blood tests. They should be
Right.
running these blood tests
Right.
that give them some more information as to what is necessary. So for the family, get the information that you need. Many people are coexisting, if I can use that phrase, working and doing well. Many are have healthy relationships with their spouse, with their partner, even with their children. And I say for the children, if you have a family member and the mom or the auntie has children, I would say you make sure the children understand the diagnosis because it can have an effect on the children because we're dealing with environmental impact, right? I'm a
Yes.
child and I'm watching my mom, she's
Right.
happy and that's what we call the manic stage. So there's a manic and depressed stage. So they have the manic, and manic can be different things. It could be I'm spending a lot. I don't get much sleep or sleep at all. And manic is different for every individual. So manic could be I'm very talkative, and I got all these great ideas and I'm working on 50 projects and they are productive individuals. They really can be.
Mhm.
But they introduce medication to bring some balance to the
Mhm.
when they have a they're depressed and they don't want to do anything, they don't want to go anywhere, they may be suicidal. So it impacts the child or the children. So you want to make sure they have the information that they need. But get a therapist, psychologist, a social worker, licensed individual who can provide those diagnoses. And if medication is necessary, recommend a psychiatrist to do that. Like I said, also a psych nurse who is a PRN or above.
That's important for the community to know. And I hope you're writing down these websites so that you can go to them and really get proper information because the new language now is I'm Dr. Diane Clark and I'm living with a diagnosis. I'm living with a mental health issue. We don't say so and so is crazy. We do not do that. We do not try to diagnose based on people's emotional responses either. That's very important that you don't do that because there are a lot of people who are happy, who are enthused, but they don't have a mental health issue. But it is so important to pay attention to your mental health because it drives the quality of your life. So, Frida, let's talk about having a healthy mindset, developing.
Yes.
I know. Developing a healthy
Yes.
mindset. What does that look like
Mm-hmm.
in this rat race that we're in now with
Mm-hmm.
political disruption, distress in the environment, storms, droughts, people losing their homes, the fires in Hawaii and Canada, and there's so many calamities around. If you're not careful and you don't have a healthy mindset toward those things, it can create a slight state of depression with you. And you don't want to let that get too far.
Yes, you saw my response when you said
Yeah,
healthy mindset. It's like,
yeah,
oh, relief. Yes, and can I add, healthy mindset is not the boom. That's it. I get it. I'm good. It's
right.
a process. Why? Because life keeps happening.
Mm-hmm.
Who in Hawaii thought that was going to happen, right? Who in Canada thought that was going to happen, right? Even us here in Florida, and those of us who experience hurricanes, it's like hurricane season, right? We get that one hurricane season. Oh God, is it going to happen? I'm in the right zone, right? It is not just only, but it's anywhere you are. You have your own set of calamities. You may have the dust storm. You may have the rainstorms, the mudslides, and the list goes on and on and on. We've talked about natural occurrences, but life happens when, like 2020, pandemic, boo.
Mm-hmm.
We have heard of pandemics. We lived through some. Come on now, West Nile virus.
You're right.
We've had this thing every year or every other year, there's a pandemic. And I mentioned West Nile virus because it hit close to home. My husband was diagnosed with West Nile virus. And if I can plug here, I agree with Dr. Clark when she said, I did not say my husband had, you know,
Mm-hmm.
West Nile. I said he was diagnosed with West Nile virus, and it boom, it hit home because we at that time, remember, it's the mosquito. Don't go outside. Did the mosquito? Yeah. And so there was this trauma. Remember, I talked about earlier. We all traumatized in some way, right? With that. Well, it happened to me. Don't go outside. Cover yourself. And because of my walk as a Christian and our prayer life, I immediately knew where to go first and foremost, and that was to prayer. Not excluding my husband is in ER, he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
CDC shows on the scene, white coats, storm his room, takes over. And, what am I thinking and feeling at the time?
Mm.
So you also have everyday occurrences where someone may die, where someone may be in an accident. I was
Yes.
recently in an accident a couple of years ago. Those are all things that happen every day. So healthy mindset, everybody, is something we do every day. Another word and you may use it, and we do it, is self-care. So
Right.
self-care could be a plethora of things that we could do for our self-care. I make sure I have self-care. It may be a massage, it may be a foot bath, my own foot bath. Anything that causes us to move, to relax, a prayer time, music. And I tell my clients, I suggest to them comedy. Laughter is good medicine. Put on your favorite comedian and laugh and let those endorphins come in and release, those things that causes us to be tight. So toxic for us. So yes, healthy mindset on a daily basis, as often as life changing, moving from age 40 to 50, from 50 to 60, from
Right.
60 to 70, and for our children and our teenagers and our college students as well.
That is so important. Thank you for sharing that information. We have to deal with so many occurrences of things uh, in our lives, and sometimes there are seasons of repetitive incidents or things happening one behind the other that can be overwhelming. And I always encourage when I'm on the show, if you're having emotional meltdowns or you're feeling overwhelmed, please reach out to a counselor, reach out so that you can have some objective input to what you're feeling. When you notice that it's impacting your work life, when it's impacting your relationship at home with your children, your husband, when you notice it's impacting the relationship you have with yourself, please don't be afraid to reach out for help. It's been such a stigma in our community that something is wrong with you. You're no longer trustworthy. You're no longer considered advancing and moving in the community, but that's not true. You simply need help to think through your thoughts and situations that are occurring in your lives to develop a better outlook on that.
Absolutely. And that self-care is so important, as well as I mentioned earlier, getting those getting the facts. And one thing that I know you do, Dr. Clark, and I as well, is advocate for individuals, advocate for yourself, right? That means be so in tune to what's going on with you that you can advocate for yourself and set those boundaries with others, and you can help other people as well who may not be in a position to help themselves in a way that will bring about the positive results that they need in their lives, especially when it comes to mental health.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. Don't overlook that. If you were feeling bad in your digestive system, you would go to a doctor to find out, well, what's going on, because this is not normal. If you break a bone, you go to the orthopedic doctor because you want your bone to be healed. You want it to be set back in place so that you can continue to function. And listen, I'm telling you, more than a break of a bone, more than inner digestive problem or something going on in any physical part of your body, your mind is important. That is the central control to your life. And you want to keep a healthy mind so that you can have a healthy heart. Our guest tonight has been Frida Doxy with A Wise Company. She's a licensed mental health counselor. And I invite you to contact Frida if you say, I just need to talk to somebody. I'm not crazy. I'm not off. I'm not weird, but I am challenging some issues in my life. and I really just need to sit down and talk with somebody and get some objective information. Frida, if they want to reach you, could you tell them how to get in contact with you?
Yes, the number is 904-337-9898. You can go to the website, which is A Wise Company, all one word. I'm sorry, awise.company. awise.company. That's different, I know. awise.company. And if I may also add, I mentioned veterans early. We are having an event November 10 and 11. November 10th is Veterans Day, but we're doing it that evening. It's a celebration, an all-white celebration that Friday night, where we are going to celebrate the advancement of women and honor our women veterans. And then that Saturday, we'll have panelists and guest speakers, live entertainment and workshops right in the same room with lunch and a brief breakfast for that morning, where once again, we are celebrating the advancement of women and honoring women veterans. And some of the proceeds will go to the Northeast Women's Veterans Center right here in Jacksonville, Florida. That's one of my passions. So go to my website, and we'll also have information if you follow me on Facebook about the event, because we want you to register. Men and women, the entire community is going to come out. We're going to celebrate the advancement of women and honor our women veterans. So again, my number is 904-337-9898.
All right. Thank you so much, Frida, for being a guest on the show. We've enjoyed your commentary, and thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. How many enjoyed that? We had some factual information that would benefit us in really digesting situations and things that are happening around us. Listen, don't suffer in silence. Reach out to someone and get help. I want to remind you that September 30th, we're going to be doing the Motown Review, the iconic sounds of Motown, with a live band. DJ is going to be delicious food, fun, lots of laughter. We're going to be giving away cash prizes. And I want you to get your ticket today. Let's make that a special afternoon as we celebrate grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. I think it is so necessary that we recognize our seniors, because they are the bedrock of our community. And it means a lot to a grandparent for someone to say, thank you for doing what you didn't have to do, but being selfless enough to take up the task. Listen, you can get your ticket at Eventbrite, that's Motown Review, or you can go to the website at drdianeclark.org, or you may reach us by phone at 904-476-1104. Thank you so much for joining in, and we look forward to connecting with you next Thursday at 7 p.m. Remember, we're on weekly Thursday at 7 p.m. Have a wonderful weekend, and God bless you.
Thanks for joining us for Unplugged Live with Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, PhD, helping to bring change and transformation in the mental health space within the church community. Dr. Diane wants to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, guest recommendations, or program topic ideas, visit DianeUnplugged.com and click the Contact Us link. Dr. Diane also appreciates your prayers and your financial support. You can give online at DianeUnplugged.com and select Donate. If your business or ministry organization is interested in sponsoring this program, you can go to DianeUnplugged.com and click the Contact Us link. Unplugged Live is on all the social media platforms. Just search Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, follow, and subscribe. Unplugged Live with Dr. Diane Smith-Clark, PhD. Healthy mind, wealthy life.